Hello, this is DrPaulCottrell, and I'm going to be giving you a few updates throughout the day. Some of these videos will be short, some of them will be long form, but hopefully you stay abreast with the news that's going on in the Middle East. It does seem like there's more activity that's taking place, and we're ramping up a more aggressive offense in Gaza. And when I mean we, I mean uh, the allied forces, not just Israel. I think the United States is getting more involved. There's some reports that some of the special forces were in that first wave going in, U.S. special forces, a number of them that were embedded with the Israelis. The rumor is that one of our soldiers was either wounded or killed in that first wave. That was a special force guy. I don't know if it was through the Navy or if it was through the Army. But okay, with that said, that's the rumor. Let me play this video. This is from Fox News. I'm recording this on October 31st, so happy Halloween. And this is dealing with the drones getting into the airspace in Israel. Before I play this, and I'll mention this in another video, I just found out today, all right, that some of the Kabbalists, you know, when they interpret some of the Zohar and some of the inner Torah, that remember I was telling you about the 216-year date where the Messianic era is forced? Well, they said that actually the resurrection of the dead comes 210 years before the Messianic era. If that's true, I don't know if it's true. I just heard it today. That would mean that in 2030, the resurrection of the dead actually happens. Now, I'm not saying that that's what's going to happen. I'm just saying that that's what the Kabbalists are saying. And that would be an interesting world that we're going to be living in if that's the case. Literally, we may be seeing Dawn of the Dead.
Alert. This is a live look right now at the ruins along the Israel-Gaza border. Right now, the IDF is pushing deeper into Hamas-controlled territory.
Meanwhile, overnight, Israeli forces killed the commander who directed portions of the major attacks on October 7th.
Meanwhile, the IDF is hunting down Hamas targets inside their 300-mile tunnel network.
Yeah, Trey Yanks is live on the ground in southern Israel with the latest. Trey.
Yeah, hey guys, good morning. I do want to start with some breaking news. Two separate times this morning, there have been suspected drone infiltrations into Israeli airspace in the southern part of this country. Israeli media is reporting these were drones likely fired by Houthi rebels in Yemen that came toward Israel through the Red Sea. Here along the southern border between Israel and Gaza, the fighting continues. I do want to just show you the scene behind me as we talk here. You can see a lot of activity in the ruins of the northern part of Gaza. We do understand, according to Hamas, the group in control of the strip, that their Al-Qassam brigades, the main military wing of Hamas, has been engaging Israeli forces that are currently operating in the strip there that you see. Yesterday, we saw those Israeli tanks that were going back and forth along the border. We also have some information from the Israeli military that we can't reveal yet about the battles that took place overnight. But as that information becomes on the record, we will bring it to you later in the day. All of this comes as we are learning more about the hostages being held inside Gaza, 240 people. That does not include the 4 that have been released to America.
What I would like to say is that with those drones that are, you know, coming from another country, this is going to be increasing the wider war effort, and this dovetails into the drone strikes that were happening on U.S. bases. So what's going to happen is that the United States is going to have to start knocking out other countries within that region. So this is opening up that larger conflict. This is not just the southern offensive that is happening. There's going to be there's going to need to be a northern offensive to attack Lebanon and Syria, and then there's going to need to be an offensive against Iran and Yemen and whoever else is, going to be involved, on top of concerns of Europe, with the whole Russian-Ukraine issue, and then concerns in the Asian theater with the Chinese getting into Taiwan. Now, John Hogue, thinks that the Chinese aren't something to worry about, but 50% of the shipping that happens around the world goes through the Taiwan Straits. So, you're worried about inflation, and you're worried about goods and services not being provided. You would have a major supply chain disruption if the Taiwan Straits are controlled by the Chinese. That's for sure. So people need to start waking up that this is far more than just a bunch of hairy, crazy beasts attacking Israel. And there's a divine thing that's happening. There's this kind of, like, you can feel the intensity of this. This is not your run-of-the-mill orchestrated war. This is something totally different.
Citizens and 2 Israeli citizens, and of course that Israeli soldier that was rescued just yesterday as part of the ongoing Israeli efforts inside the Strip. We're talking about Private Ori Megadish, who was freed from captivity. She was originally...
My understanding is the soldier that was released was the one that's wearing the Marvel T-shirt, right? That's my understanding. And that happened, I believe, last night. And the news also, and I'll cover this, one of the girls that were captured was found killed, and I think they found her skull or something.
On October 7th from the Nachalos base that sits along the border with Gaza. The Israelis say she is in good condition and that she was able to meet with her family just yesterday. This does come as the Israelis say they conducted a strike against one specific commander from Hamas in the northern part of the Gaza Strip. We're talking about Nassam Abu Ajina, who directed one of the attacks against Israeli civilians on October 7th. Yet another member of Hamas that has been taken out by Israeli forces. As they do tell Fox News, the efforts are focused around trying to destroy Hamas capabilities and the leadership command inside Gaza. Guys, back to you.
Hey, Trey, you did report earlier that there were high-level Israeli officials in Doha trying to work with these to get the hostages out. Does that have anything to do with the rescue that the IDF pulled off?
So we understand there are 2 separate issues. The Israelis tell Fox that this was a joint effort to save this private who was captured on October 7th. And this effort had to do with the Shin Bet, Israel's intelligence service, and also the army on the ground. They were clearly acting on specific intelligence. They were able to conduct this raid and rescue the private that was being held. And we actually saw this photo of her with her family yesterday, and you could just see the relief on their faces. They had their daughter back home after so many weeks of waiting with no information whether she was alive or dead.
Yeah, and Trey, I can tell you're being cagey about not revealing operational details, but was she in a tunnel? Because if she was in a tunnel, she's going to be able to tell the IDF, okay, I was in this tunnel and I saw this stuff and this is how they operate.
Yeah, I'm being very careful with the details here, and I'll tell you why. This morning, I met again in Tel Aviv with Israel's Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, and we talked about this specific situation and also the battles that are taking place behind me inside the Gaza Strip. The majority of our conversation with a small group of journalists was off the record. I'm working to get some of that information on the record so I can bring it to you next hour, but very sensitive details that we're talking about, and I will effort to get them approved and able to bring them to you later today.
Trey, you've covered a lot of wars. You've been on the ground for a lot of conflicts. Is it fair to say that the invasion has started?
Yeah, this is the second stage of this war. It was something that was part of that conversation we had today.
I'll take it even one step further. We may be seeing the beginnings of the end time. Maybe just not the offensive. You know, we may be seeing the actual ushering in of the missing in a cage.
Clarity on whether this is all part of an expanded raid or whether or not the Israeli forces are operating inside the Gaza Strip and intend to stay there. I have information on that, but I just have to wait to give it to you until we can get this cleared by Israeli censors and ensure that we're not giving away any Israeli positions. I do want to just let you know right now, my producer is telling me that sirens are sounding in Metula. Metula is in northern Israel, an indication that the Lebanese militant group Hezbollah is once again getting involved in this fight and firing on Israeli troops in the north. It gives you a sense of just how active the southern and northern front is in this conflict. Those Iranian proxies, not just in Gaza, but also in southern Lebanon, engaging in this fight.
All right, Trey, thank you so much.
All right, so that's Fox News dealing with the suspected drone and some updates about the hostage that was released, the Israeli soldier. Now, this one here was published 2 hours ago from Fox News, all right? And this is talking about drones again hitting Iraq, U.S. bases in Iraq overnight.
Base in Iraq was attacked multiple times overnight with armed drones.
Greg Palcott live near Israel's northern border with Lebanon with the very latest. Greg.
Yeah, a lot of activity everywhere at this very moment. We are hearing Israeli drones, armed drones, overhead our position here. In recent days, we've been seeing growing clashes between Israel and Hezbollah, and as you note, a regional spreading of the conflict as well. The U.S. military base in Iraq was the latest target of drones launched overnight by an Iranian-backed proxy group. There were no casualties or damage. All told, though, there have been 24 such attacks on bases in Iraq and Syria in recent weeks, and that has left 21 service members injured. The U.S. has returned fire twice. Here at the Israel-Lebanon border, we've been witnessing the results of escalating firings of rockets, missiles.
This is a perfect example on how the Biden administration is too timid in being able to really solve this problem. All right.
Oh, maybe we'll strike. All right, you hit our bases. Maybe we'll strike. We'll decide on if we're going to make actually a decision to defend ourselves or not at our own time and our own timeline.
This region knows nothing but war, and the only way to solve this and for us all to have peace in the world is to get the job done. And Biden is already backtracking on supporting this war effort, right? Why? Because there's an election that's coming up in the United States in 2024. The Democrats are worried that they're going to lose more seats in the House and that potentially lose the White House, right? And so they're going to lose power, right? And they need to placate to their ultra-left craziness that is anti-Jew. The ultra-left is pro-Hamas, pro-Palestinian, pro-abortion, pro-destruction of the family unit. That's who he's trying to placate to. He wants to go, well, Israel needs to defend itself, but you got to be humane about it, and we're gonna when we want to, we're gonna tell Israel, you know what, it's time for a ceasefire. If the job ain't done, there shouldn't be a ceasefire. I think Netanyahu is right on this. I think Netanyahu is corrupt for sure. He's a corrupt politician. There was probably some sort of failure of intelligence forcefully to fully prevent this kind of situation from happening. All right. Kind of similar to what happened with 9/11. There was kind of an inside job that let the whole thing happen. All right. I think something similar happened in Israel. There's definitely corruption with Netanyahu. But I'll tell you, when Netanyahu is saying no to ceasefire, the damn job ain't done. That is exactly the right position, because this kicking the can down the road and this U.S. UN, partial war mentality for the last 50 years is why we have spent trillions of dollars in the Middle East and have so many wars and so much destruction and death. Get the job done and it will be lasting peace. A ceasefire, a de-escalation of conflict in the short term is not a long-term solution. It's only going to get worse. Here, once again, are we going to do the right thing or not? Absolute positive destruction of Hamas, Hezbollah, Islamic Jihad, ISIS, Iran. That's what's needed.
By the Iran-backed Hezbollah militants, no doubt triggered by the growing land incursion by Israel in Gaza against the group's Hamas ally. And as we continue, Israel is responding with greater power as well. We hear the outgoing Israeli tanks, artillery, armed drones. Now we are hearing of jet fighters striking deeper in Lebanon. All this has left 7 Israeli soldiers dead, as well as 50 Hezbollah fighters killed in the last 3 weeks. Civilian casualties.
I want to replay that because I thought I heard that it's jets attacking Lebanon.
All this has left 7 Israeli soldiers dead, as well as 50 wounds. Now we are hearing of jet fighters striking deeper in Lebanon. All this has left 7 Israeli soldiers dead, as well as 50 Hezbollah fighters killed in the last 3 weeks. Civilian casualties and evacuation on both sides. And the volatile West Bank, also a scene of unrest overnight. Over 100 Palestinians have been killed in recent days by Israeli security, clashing with the Hamas supporters there and supporters of other groups. These groups receive aid and assistance again from Iran. And one last group to worry about, guys. I know there's a lot to keep track of. The Houthi group down in Yemen. They are also backed by Iran. And overnight, it is suspected they launched 2 exploding drones against the southern Israeli resort town of Eilat. Those were knocked down, no damage. So at this point, we're not looking at a second major front yet, but we are looking at a whole bunch of hotspots in this entire region. Back to you guys.
Okay, Greg Palcott live for us on the ground near the Israel-Lebanon border. Greg, thank you so much.
The United States needs to go all in and stop telling Netanyahu to stop the hostilities. Because the only reason why Biden is saying that is because the Democratic Party is worried about all the protests that are going on in the United States that's pro-Hamas, pro-Palestinian, pro-destruction of the family unit, pro-destruction of democracy. All they care about is power, and all they care about is getting elected. And they do not care about really solving the problem in the Middle East. And I'm telling you, you keep on kicking the can down the road like we've done for the last 50 years, it's going to get worse. Unconventional means are going to get in the possession of these terrorists. And that means chemical, biological, radiological. And the barriers of entry for biological and chemical is much lower now. Now, there's let's take a look at BBC. You know, the BBC, now Fox is, you know, I'll frame it as pro-Israeli, all right? I think the way they do their coverage is more like how to solve this terrorist activity through war, right? And I align with that thought process. Now, BBC is more, I think, more on the Palestinian sites, typically. But I haven't seen this particular report, so let's play this BBC report.
Hello, I'm Lucy Gray. The Israeli military says it's striking Hamas targets in all parts of the Gaza Strip, as well as Hezbollah targets in Lebanon. An IDF spokesman said it was hunting commanders of the Palestinian militant group and attacking infrastructure. Meanwhile, the Palestinian Red Crescent says the area around the...
This was published 2 hours ago.
Hospital in Gaza City has been under heavy bombardment by Israeli forces. Our Middle East correspondent Yulan now reports.
Shrouded in darkness, the Gaza Strip is pummeled from the air by Israeli airstrikes, with flares raining down to mark targets. And by day, the devastation and the huge human cost is clear. It was the subject of a briefing given to the UN Security Council last night. According to figures from the Palestinian Ministry of Health, some 40% of the more than 8,300 people killed in Gaza were children.
The true cost of this latest escalation will be measured in children's lives.
See what I mean? The whole perspective of the BBC, which is state-run by the English, is the carnage on the Palestinian side, right? So a lot of the people that are anti-Israeli, pro-Hamas, they're getting this feed.
Those lost to the violence and those forever changed by it. More than 420 children are being killed or injured in Gaza every day, a number that should shake each of us to our core.
More than 3 weeks.
It's a shame that children are getting killed. But why didn't the parents prevent Hamas from digging those fucking tunnels for 15 fucking years?
Israel endured its bloodiest ever day of attacks. It's been expanding its military operation to obliterate Hamas, which controls Gaza. Israeli tanks are now slowly advancing, and the Israeli Prime Minister rejects any idea of a truce.
Calls for a ceasefire are calls for Israel to surrender to Hamas, to surrender to terrorists, to surrender to Bardo. That will not happen.
Overnight, a glimmer of hope for Israelis, celebrating after a soldier said to have been rescued by the army in Gaza was brought home. Some 238 hostages, Israelis and foreigners, snatched on the 7th of October, remain captive. Earlier, these 3 Israeli women had been shown in a video put out by Hamas.
When I saw the image of Danielle on TV, my heart almost stopped. My wife and I were on one hand shocked, but on the other hand we felt relief that we saw her alive and that we see her. Until today, we didn't know anything about her.
Entire neighborhoods in Gaza are being rendered unrecognizable. This 5th war in 15 years is the most brutal yet. And beyond the fighting, conditions grow tougher by the day. Aid agencies saying that a small increase in the supplies now getting in isn't nearly enough. Yolanda Nell, BBC News, Jerusalem.
Well, there are reports 100 aid trucks will be allowed into Gaza in the coming days, but UNRWA spokesperson Juliet Tuma says it's a fraction of the help that's needed.
The trucks that have been coming into the Gaza Strip, by the way, not every day, are far from enough. Before the war, Gaza received 500 trucks, including of humanitarian aid. So what we're having right now is really a trickle, and does not correspond at all to the huge and increasing humanitarian needs on the ground in Gaza.
And in terms of the amount of people that you have in Gaza, it's many thousands, isn't it, people that have worked for you over the years. What are they telling you from on the situation on the ground about how they're coping?
Well, every day our sadness deepens with confirmation that we keep getting that another colleague is yet gone. Yesterday we lost Samir. He was with his family and he was killed with his 8 children and his wife. 64 colleagues of ours at UNRWA have now been killed in just over 3 weeks in this war in the Gaza Strip.
UN aid agencies. Why did the UN continue to let Hamas dig tunnels in Gaza? A lot of these NGOs, what they do is they wait for a huge problem, let's say like the situation we're in right now, so they get donations. They need these kinds of situations in the news and project this humanitarian issue so they get money. That's how these NGOs work. So you donate, and then about 10 or 20% of that money is going to administration fees.
$64.
Gosh, and are the people who remain there, are they able to carry on their work now? I mean, we've been hearing some agencies having to really just give up because the situation is so dire.
No, we have not given up. We have not. We have 13,000 people who have been working with us in the Gaza Strip. We are the largest UN agency in the Gaza Strip, one of the oldest that have been working in Gaza with the Palestinian communities, teachers, doctors, engineers, support staff, counselors, ecologists, you name it. I mean, it's a very big presence for us at UNRWA in the Gaza Strip, and we have been working with the Palestinian communities. Now, many of our staff have been impacted themselves due to this war. Many have become displaced. Many have lost loved ones. Many have lost their own homes. Many of them are just exhausted. They have been living in UN shelters for weeks on end now. Many, however, continue to be on the front lines, giving the very little assistance that we have, being with the communities that we serve and fulfilling their humanitarian mandates. When we say these are unsung heroes, we mean it. UNRWA staff in Gaza are our unsung heroes.
Something that just clicked in my mind while I'm watching this, because I have not seen this video, so we're doing this all, unprepared and just raw, right, as I record this. Why doesn't the Palestinians in Gaza actually rise up against Hamas? There's more Palestinians, supposedly, that are just victims of war than to let Hamas continue on down the path of complete annihilation. And it's very similar to what we saw through the crisis that we just went through in 2020, right? We know what that is, but I don't want to say it because I want this video up. But the thing is that we had a lot of people that weren't willing to get the job done, meaning stop the root cause. Where was the genesis of this in terms of facilities making weapons of mass destruction, unconventional means, biologics, all right? I'm being generic so the video can speak, but you know what I'm saying. We had a population that wasn't willing. They just wanted to be a victim. Said, oh, I don't want to take this and I need to take that. No, oh my God. But instead, they were in fear, right? And they didn't do anything. They didn't shut down the facilities. They didn't force the shutdown of the facilities that made the stuff. They didn't go to Congress and demand accountability and shut down the labs. No. But there'll be keyboard warriors saying, no, don't do this and don't do that. The same thing, same attitude. It's the same mentality. Now, the victims, supposedly, in the Gaza Strip, need the aid of someone. Why don't they rise up and actually take hold and take control of their country? See, what has happened is people have gotten to this mindset that they need help from some other external force, some other agency, by the government, instead of a grassroots effort to actually control your own destiny. Same thing happened in the crisis. A lack of fortitude to actually go to the root cause of why the crisis happened. And that was the development of unconventional warfare.
And they are the glimmer of humanity as we sink into our darkest hours.
Juliette Toomer there talking to me. She's from the UN agency which looks after Palestinian refugees. Let's speak to Abdel Basir Hassan, our reporter from BBC Arabic in Cairo. And I was listening to a military spokesperson for Israel talking to the BBC in the last half hour, saying that there could be 100 trucks of aid entering from Egypt into Gaza by the end of this week. How feasible is that, in your opinion?
Well, sources at the Rafah crossing just told us minutes ago that another 60 trucks have already passed through the Egyptian gate, the Egyptian side of the crossing, into the zone which Israel decided to be the point where inspections are taking place, loading and unloading the trucks, which and the change would be there. These 60 are now together with another 35 are being still at this point, didn't move to Gaza from yesterday. Yesterday, 60 entered to that point. Only 26 of them later in the night passed to the enclave. Now, at the point, there are 94 trucks at the loading, unloading, and unloading and inspection point, which is almost 60 miles away from Rafah crossing, according to Egyptian sources. Yes, there is a significant rise in the number. We have been talking over the last days about 14, 15, 16, 20 trucks. So yesterday and today we are talking about 60 and 60 today as well. This came, in fact, after a conversation between Egyptian President and U.S. President Biden, which he said more trucks will be allowed in. And we have heard reports from yesterday that the State Department spoke about the possibility of busing fuel to Gaza, but no date was set for this for the fuel trucks to bus on. So far, we are talking about food, medicine, and water mainly. And there is an expected trip today to the border by the Egyptian Prime Minister. Something new might happen there. We don't know exactly why he would be there. But there is also an important meeting here in Cairo between UNRWA chief Philip Lazini and the Egyptian Foreign Ministry. There could be a talk about the needs of this trip, especially after the complaints that whatever the number of trucks passing on, it wouldn't amount to the bad needs of the besieged strip. So therefore, we might expect from today's meeting more numbers to be divulged on what should be coming in the next days.
It's interesting that they're discussing the possibility of taking fuel in, because of course Israel says that it won't allow fuel to go into Gaza because of the concern that it could end up in the hands of Hamas.
And this is very important, but still we are talking about reports from the US side, no mention of this from the Israeli side, or even from the Egyptian side, or even from the international organizations working in the strip, or either here on the Egyptian side. They are in their need, they were to cold, bad, and war.
I've been playing this for 9 minutes with very little interruption, some interruption. And I think that it's warranted to say, with state-run BBC, all right, and we know that it's state-run, for sure. There's no doubt about that, all right? That why is it that the UK is trying to position the mindset of individuals out there, the far majority of them, to be pro-Palestinian and anti-Israeli? All right? Why is that? We need to ask that question. And I think what it is that there has never been a desire to ever have true peace there. And it's always going to be like half war. And that's a term that you're going to start hearing in the news. Half war. Half war. And then de-escalation of the cycle of violence. Because they make money. They make money to have a continuous, perpetual strife. So this is why the Western countries are at fault by not allowing for this to reach its conclusion, because of this idea of half war. Now, back in the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, it was primarily due to oil interests. Now, since the United States has actually more oil than Saudi Arabia, that is not a concern. But there are geopolitical concerns in terms of not just oil, not because of the oil now, but positioning, trying to take out Russia internationally. All right. Another problem with that, the Western powers poking the bear and thinking that this idea that Russia has to be eliminated or reconfigured. Just keep that in mind. Why is the BBC always on the Palestinian side? And I think what you're going to see is that there's a lot of skimming that's taking place. There's arm deals that are taking place. And there is this potentiality of being a power broker all the time. For example, when a president gets into office, except Trump, right? But when a president gets into office, right, almost always they try to solve the Israeli-Palestinian conflict so they can get a peace prize. It's like, how are you going to solve this problem? Like, because they think that because they've been elevated to the presidency, they must have the wisdom of Solomon or something. And the majority of the people that end up becoming president are idiots, and egomaniacs. We have to question why this is happening, But the far majority of the people, because it's easy to say, I want peace. You really want peace? Because real peace is going to be ushering in a messianic age. And if you're not a good person, that's not going to bode well for you.
That unless they get fuel as soon as they can, the services and utilities are using fuel might collapse, and the services are offering for the needy in Gaza Strip might come to a standoff. Therefore, still food is an essential need for the Gazans, and therefore we hopefully, after the Egyptian, Israeli, and could be the U.S. contacts over the last hours, there could be like a breakthrough soon. So therefore, we are waiting for this significant change if it happens.
Okay, thank you very much, Abdul Basir Hassan, our reporter there in Cairo. Let's talk more about the military operation that's underway and speak to Anna Foster, our correspondent in southern Israel, and Israel's military talking about how it's hitting all areas of the Gaza Strip now, and saying that it's had a large amount of exchanges on the ground with Hamas. Can you give us an update of what's happened overnight and this morning so far, Anna?
That's right, Lucy. Well, the Israel Defense Forces have said this morning that they have struck more than 300 Hamas targets inside Gaza in the last 24 hours or so. And you can see and hear really the ferocity of the battle that is going on there. We're hearing constant airstrikes and outgoing artillery fire from here in Israel. And the pictures that the Israel Defense Forces are releasing now show their infantry troops deep inside Gaza. They're on the ground. At the start of this, they were going in and coming out again, but they're very much dug into their positions now. And we're seeing tanks on the beaches of Gaza there, and we're seeing this increasing push from north to south of the Strip as they try to eradicate Hamas. Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli Prime Minister, has been very clear that this is a military operation that will continue until Hamas is defeated, until Hamas has been either destroyed or forced out of Gaza altogether. And you see the continuing military operation, which seems to be getting stronger every day, moving towards that eventual end. But it's also worth saying that because we're seeing and hearing so much activity, it does not mean that this will be over quickly. We heard from the Israeli Home Front Command last night. They said this will take weeks, if not months. It is a very slow progress towards their eventual goal of destroying Hamas.
Meanwhile, the humanitarian situation in Gaza deteriorates. So we have been hearing some positive news, though, in that the US and Israel talking about how there may be around 100 trucks of aid entering into Gaza from Egypt by the end of this week. And
the early announcements of the UN aid going in were now this is early on, this, several days ago, that it was around 30 trucks, all right, that first went in, and they were going to slowly increase it when they know that the safety of the drivers and the personnel for the aid were able to get to their destination, and that there was a designated path of safety. All right. And we're seeing that now. We're seeing that it's increasing. Now it's almost 100. And they'll probably need 200 or whatever. But there's aid getting in. The bigger question is if the Arab countries really cared about the Palestinians, why the hell don't they have them in camp in the Sinai Peninsula? Why is that? Why isn't Jordan helping with evacuees? The Arab nations don't want the Palestinians. That's a fact. That's a fact. Why is that?
Hearing from our reporter in Cairo talking about how maybe 60 trucks have gone into the inspection zone at the border there. So that would be a big increase from what we've seen so far, wouldn't it?
It would, but they've said this before and it hasn't come to fruition just yet. For the last several weeks, there's been a lot of high-level diplomatic conversations going on about how to increase the number of trucks that go in. And you remember in the early days, but for several days, we heard that trucks will go in today, and they didn't. Now, there is a lot of work going on behind the scenes, no doubt, a lot of high-level diplomatic talks, pressure from the likes of the US, which is Israel's biggest diplomatic and military ally. Certainly that is something that is being worked towards. The Israel Defense Forces have said in several of their briefings now that is something that is being worked towards. But I think until we actually see those trucks laden with aid passing fully through the Rafah crossing and into Gaza, it's all just words really rather than actions. And I think when you look at those images that we saw over the weekend of increasingly desperate people in Gaza actually breaking into a UN warehouse, they were kind of carrying away these big bags of wheat and boxes of basic supplies like sanitation and hygiene kits. It shows you how difficult the situation is. There is a real need for much more humanitarian aid to be getting in there. And I think that's where you see the difference between the conversations that are happening, the words, and what is actually, what we're actually seeing there on the ground.
Let's talk a bit about the hostages, because we saw yesterday this release. Well, the Israelis managed to free an Israeli soldier, and she's been reunited with her family. We also saw that video of 3 hostages being held by Hamas, and really messages from the relatives of these hostages for the Israeli troops to keep these hostages at the forefront of their minds as they are going into Gaza.
Yeah, you can see exactly why the hostage families would be saying that, because when you see the intensity of what is going on here in Gaza, and people are looking at that and knowing that their family members, their loved ones, their friends are somewhere inside that narrow strip being held by Hamas, and Hamas are being pummeled as they are by Israel, you can see why the hostage families are really concerned about their welfare. And they have been speaking with a joint voice, very loudly calling for ongoing dialogue with Israel's defense minister, Yoav Gallant, with Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli prime minister. The families were also talking about some sort of potential hostage swap that they would support. There are thousands of Palestinians being held in jails in Israel. The hostage families are talking about a swap, and it was something that when the leader of Hamas in Gaza, Yahya Sinwar, spoke for the first time a few days ago, he also talked about. Is it something that Israel will entertain the idea of? I don't know. It's hard to say. They've done prisoner swaps before. But I think what is crucial right now is that ongoing pressure that the hostage families are putting on the government. And particularly when, as you quite rightly say there, we saw that video of 3 hostages being held in.
Now, I'm going to say something really cold and raw and real, all right? Because there's too many fucking people out there that are just taking the easy road on this, all right? The hostages should not be the major determining factor on how to conduct the war, the seek and the destruction of Islamic Jihad and Hamas and Hezbollah and the complete fucking destruction of Iran. the hostages should not be part of the calculus or the major determining factor. If you can get the hostages out, that is a plus, but it is not the overall goal. And that now it is easy to say that when you don't have a family member that is a hostage in the situation, which I don't. And it's easy to say, but the far majority of the people that have an opinion on this damn crisis doesn't have skin in the game. All right. Now, when your family member is a hostage, of course you want, assuming you like your family member, you want them to be released safely, or if they're dead, at least be able to bury the body. But that should not be the determining factor in how to conduct the war. So when you have a family and you have 239 hostages supposedly, all right, that's what the number that's floating around are. So you have a group of people and the support for that group telling the government, slow down, ceasefire, we want the hostages back. That's only kicking the can down the road. Part of your commitment, part of your sacrifice to get the job done is the loss of your loved one. Just like the loss of the ones that were killed on that first, second, third day of when this took place in Israel. And all the people that are dying now. This is the problem with the ultra fucking liberal mentality. They play on the string hearts, the heartstrings. Literally, heartstrings is actually the strings on the valves of the heart. But all right, that's a side note. But they play on your heartstrings. Oh. So you picked the wrong solution. Kicking the can down the road is going to make this worse. It has been like that for 50 years. The assumption should be for those hostages that they're dead or will die. And you just get the job done. Saving 230, let's put it in real raw terms. Because, it's too easy to say, let's just have peace. Let's just save the hostages and de-escalate this. Is it worth saving 239 of these hostages when tens of thousands can die later because of further violence in that region? Is it worth it? Is the 239 hostages worth saving to have more destruction, more cost of war, more mutilations years later? Get the job done. I'm not wrong on this. Get the job done and there will be lasting peace. But you have to get the job done. It's raw. It's cold. It's callous. But the reality of the situation is that, are we going to look at this problem in an egoistic way where we got to save the 239 hostages? Or are we going to look at it from a utilitarian perspective and see that, you know what? If you really analyze the cost-benefit analysis of all this, it's better in terms of loss of life and in terms of cost to society to get the job done now than to get the job done later. But you can't get the job done now because the UN agencies wouldn't have any donations. They need the escalation of violence and the cycle to go up and then to de-escalate, and then to go up and to de-escalate. Because if you didn't have that, their organizations would just crumble because there would be no need for them. There would be no donations. And the people that are actually working for them and the ones that are running them wouldn't get paid. Again, about 15 to 22% roughly is the cost of administration. For every dollar you give, around 15 to 22 cents goes to admin. There's certain people that are making money that are running these organizations because they're playing on your heartstrings. Now, that's pretty raw. But I bet you didn't think of that when they're playing this fucking bullshit on BBC. Again, DrPaulCottrell tells you how it really is.
Gaza, clearly speaking under duress from Hamas. That part of this story, that thread of this story is really present right at the forefront of minds here in Israel all the time. And that is why you see that continuing pressure from the families and from ordinary Israelis as well, for the government to do everything they can to get those people released.
And huge international pressure on Israel to consider some sort of pause or some sort of ceasefire in this. But as you were saying, Benjamin Netanyahu has been so strong in his rejection of that idea, hasn't he?
That's right. The Israeli message is clear. They say that what happened on October the 7th, the brutal and merciless killing of more than 1,400 people, many of them Israelis, but from all kinds of different nationalities, in these southern communities here, like the one I'm speaking to you from now. He's very clear that cannot be acceptable, and that the source of those attacks, which is Hamas in Gaza, needs to be eradicated. Now, the reason we see the likes of the UN General Assembly, the UN Security Council, Israel's allies around the world, perhaps asking for these ceasefires of humanitarian pauses, often isn't because they are telling Israel that it can't defend itself. They're very clear that they support Israel's right to self-defense. It's the presence of the civilian community in Gaza, which I think is giving rise to those requests. More than 2 million people live inside that very small strip of land that you can see behind me. More than half of them have been told to leave the north and move into the south, because the north is where the fiercest of battles are happening. So you now have this desperate, displaced civilian population, many of them women and children, who are losing their lives, who are being killed in this ongoing bombardment. So that is why these diplomatic
15 years of tunnel digging by Hamas, and the Palestinians didn't do a fucking thing about it. Where's that conversation, BBC?
So ongoing about the civilian population, about the growing humanitarian issues inside Gaza. But equally, that is why Israel is so clear from its part that it will continue to do what it needs to do to defend itself and to ensure its future security.
All right. So that is the coverage for right now. I'm going to do another video and some other stuff. There's a Green Beret that talked about, what Israel might be facing and all this stuff. So this is going to be an ongoing series of videos today. Thank you for listening. I know that many people that are listening do not agree with me, but I don't really fucking care. I really don't fucking care, because the reality of the situation is that it's too easy to pick the peace route, right? But it doesn't solve the problem. And it's the same thing that I saw with the last crisis that we went through. Too many people weren't willing to shut down those BSL facilities. Too many people weren't willing to hold the government officials accountable when we went through that last crisis. Too many people didn't go to the root cause of the problem, which is a runaway national security state. And we had the crisis that we had. That's the rawness of it, right? Instead of pretending that it didn't exist. Same thing. Pretend that the Messianic era is not coming, I don't think is a smart idea. All right. Now, everyone's at fault here. The United States is at fault. The UK's at fault. Israel's at fault. The Palestinians at fault. The Arab nations are at fault. But the thing is that it's time to get the job done. All right. And if we side on placating to terrorists, we're going to get cursed. This country, the United States, is going to be dying from within because it won't have the blessing it needs to be a vibrant country. And it's too easy to do a YouTube channel and say, peace in the Middle East, peace for the Palestinians. Yeah. You have a metastasized situation around the world with this Islamic jihad and this Islamic caliphate. And they're coming after the Jews right now. But you Christians out there, I guarantee you this is coming for you too. We're in the same boat, man. And you need to wake up to that fact. Thank you for listening to my video here and all my videos. Make sure you subscribe to all 3 channels that I have on YouTube. I have the links in the description of this video. Click the link and make sure you subscribe and you get the notification. I get censorship, and there's censorship, right? And do you want to hear the rawness of life? Or do you want to hear the sugar-coated aspects of life, right? You know, like the last crisis we just went through. No matter which option you picked, your risks have been elevated for cancer. Period. Fact. All right. So now also subscribe to my other 3 channels that I have. I have Bitchute, Rumble, and Brighteon. So click the links in this video to make sure, under the description, make sure that you subscribe to those channels. So you have 6 channels to follow me on, all right? In addition, especially the ones that would like to support my news coverage and that are international or domestic, please go to my website, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and donate on Stripe or PayPal. You can also donate through Buy Me a Coffee. If you would like to also help by being a subscriber to Patreon to help support my news coverage, please do. The link is in the description to be a Patreon subscriber. That's a great way if you're international and can't get my health products and follow my protocol, my anti-aging protocol. My store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, link is in the description. The-studio-reykjavik.com. You can purchase the health products that I offer. I have Max 35. This is a great product to be able to neutralize pathogens. We're going through the cold season and we're going through unconventional war. You got to get prepared. You got to get prepared. You want to be able to maintain that mucosal lining that's in your oral cavity and your upper respiratory, right? You need to maintain that, and you need to neutralize the pathogens. I take this every day, a teaspoon of it every day. If I am not feeling well, I'll take a tablespoon. If that feeling of a cold is coming on, then I take 2 tablespoons throughout the day, right? You know, maybe one in the morning and another one at night. But I take a teaspoon of this every day. And what I do is 20 seconds or 30 seconds, swish it in your mouth. It's neutralizing the pathogens. Gargle it about 20 seconds and then swallow it. And what that's doing is it's cleansing, basically neutralizing the pathogens in your esophagus, in your mouth, and in the back of your throat. And by doing that, you're keeping that good mucosal lining and maintaining that barrier to prevent pathogens from getting into your keratinized squamous cells. All right. So just pay attention. Pay attention to what I'm doing. This is part of the anti-aging protocol. Another product that you can get on my store is this probiotic. It's powdered. I put it in hummus. I take it every day. You need good gut biome for proper metabolism and proper energy absorption. And not only that, when you have a good gut biome, you know your stool will be better and more regular. And on top of that, there's going to be better communication between your gut and your brain. You know, there's brain health and gut health are kind of connected. Resveratrol, a great antioxidant. It's synergistic with C60. It gets rid of senescent cells, and it's part of the protocol to slow down the aging process. This has been well known to slow down aging. Clarity factor. This is going to get rid of the brain fog. So you're not a zombie listening to BBC constantly or CNN. All right. If you want to be a crazy liberal, don't take this product. But if you want to actually be an enlightened individual that's not a crazy liberal, take this product. All right. Clarity factor is a great product to get rid of brain fog and is way better than Brain Force from Alex Jones. This product is better than Alex Jones's product. So go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get this product. What's going to happen is that you're going to be able to concentrate better. There's not going to be brain fog, and those dendrites are going to be firing more, right? The synaptic cleft is going to have more neurotransmitters, and those dendrites will connect, and you'll have more neurological connection, and you'll be able to think faster and slow down that cognitive decline as you get older. D3 helps to absorb calcium, but also is a cofactor for gene expression, and it'll help to get rid of cells that need to go into apoptosis. I wonder why it was so important during the last crisis. Turmeric, bring down inflammation. This is part of the anti-aging protocol. So I take this every day, and what that will do is bring down those pro-inflammatory cytokines, right? And if you follow my protocol that I've been mentioning on other channels, it'll also help to reduce cardiovascular disease when you mix it with some other stuff. Ashwagandha controls your blood glucose levels, and also is synergistic with the turmeric to bring down that inflammatory response that I'm talking about. There's 3 pillars to the protocol. Neutralize pathogens with liquids and gels, the structural nanosilver. Take C60 as a very strong antioxidant to soak up those reactive oxygen species and to improve the mitochondrial health in your cell and boost up that ATP. And taking turmeric and ashwagandha as a means to bring down the inflammation. And when you do that on a regular basis, then what's going to happen is you're start to age slower. But then you start taking the D3s and the B complex vitamins, and the multivitamin and all this stuff, and you're gonna notice that your body is aging slower. Vitamin C, really important to make sure you don't get scurvy, because a lot of people that are roaming around the streets in New York because they're crazy liberals have scurvy. So you don't want to get that crazy liberal scurvy disease, right? But on top of that, vitamin C is really important to take so you would be able to improve your skin health. It is an antioxidant, but C60 is way stronger than vitamin C in terms of antioxidant. The best toothpaste you can get is on my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. It's way better than Alex Jones's toothpaste. So to help support my work and not be a crazy fucking liberal, make sure that you get this product. This has structural nanosilver. It's going to whiten your teeth, freshen your breath, neutralize pathogens, reduce the gum inflammation, and if you have proper oral hygiene, you're going to reduce the chances of cardiovascular disease and reduce the chances of valvular disease. This is a great product, and again, it neutralizes pathogens. I wonder why it was so important during the last crisis. Silver gel. This neutralizes pathogens. It's made from the structural nanosilver. You put it on your skin, it'll stay active for about 5 hours. You put it on your hands, around your mouth, around your nose, around in your nostrils, around your ears, right? And it'll neutralize pathogens. On top of that, if you have a cut, a scrape, an abrasion, a minor burn, you put this on and it's going to heal around 30% quicker. On top of it, if you put this on your skin every day at night, when you wake up, you're going to notice that your skin is tighter and clearer. I also have structural nanosilver soaps of different varieties. So please go to the store and pick up a few of these soaps made from the structural nanosilver. Neutralizes pathogens. Lignans, to be able to improve your hormonal health and in your immune system. This is a powder. You put it in like water or hummus or something soft or a smoothie, right? I mix this with the probiotic, which is the powder. I also have a capsule form of the probiotic for the ones that want to take a capsule. But basically, I mix these together in hummus every afternoon as part of my protocol. So this product, Lignans, will help with your hormonal health and your immune system. It's for males and females. You'll notice that a lot of my products are multifunctional to be able to bring down your costs. Multivitamins, very important. Take this multivitamin. Multivitamins are extremely important to make sure that you get the cofactors that you need for cellular processes. If you don't have enough of the cofactors, your enzymatic activity will be less. Structural nanosilver lozenges. We're in the cold season, and oh, by the way, we may potentially be going into unconventional warfare. Structural nanosilver will help to soothe that irritation that you have in your throat, but also it'll neutralize pathogens. I wonder why it was so important to take in the last crisis. I've partnered up with Rainbow Herbals to make the best deodorant bars that you can buy on the planet. All right. These deodorant bars do not have aluminum. It's made out of essential oils, extremely high quality from the Himalayas. This bar is going to be the best deodorant bar that also helps with detoxification because of the high quality of the ingredients. So if you want to get healthy and not smell like a crazy liberal, buy these deodorant bars from my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. I have 2 scents. One is the citrus and the other is the peppermint tea tree. So that's how you can improve your health and support my work. Go to the store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the products that you need and follow the protocol that I have been saying for 4 years to the public. And I've been tweaking this ever since I've been 16 years old. Thank you for listening and have a nice day.